The governor has been a great friend of this organization. The governor and I have known each other for like 40 years. And I will say this, and this is what I was thinking about this morning. We live in this angry world. I was watching a political debate on my neighborhood association Facebook page last night, and people were angry. And I'm like, this is a neighborhood Facebook site. The anger is extraordinary. But we have a governor who day to day stood there and updated us on COVID, calmly, methodically, with a smile, making a joke about the mask he had on that day as hundreds of masks were sent to you. And we have a governor who 6 years into his term in office has a 70% approval rating. I would make the case to you that there is no governor in this country who has a 70% approval rating, let alone a governor who has been there for 6 years, leading a state through COVID, leading a state into issue 1, and we thank you for that. And thank you again for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, would you thank the governor for being here?
Thank you, Joe. What a great job you're doing leading the Good Roads Foundation. And it's good to see the passion that you have for issue 1. I think he laid it out very clearly, and I'll reiterate that. I know that I'm looking at those that believe in issue 1, but this is an important opportunity really to focus our efforts to hone our message and to make sure that we're ready for the final push. I can't help but be a little bit reflective whenever Joe was making his comments about my time as governor, and we all feel our oats every once in a while as to what we're doing in life and how important it is, but I never felt more important when I got that letter from that young child the other day that said, "Dear Governor, please don't cancel Halloween." And so I had to give full assurance that Halloween is going to happen this year. You follow the rules and the guidelines, but it's been a real privilege, a challenge, but a privilege to lead Arkansas during a very difficult time in our history. And we all want to see this in the rearview mirror, but it won't happen yet. We'll get there, and we will see it in the rearview mirror, and we'll be wiser for it, but we're still in that challenging time and have to keep our focus. I do want to appreciate Dan Flowers. I want you to know I went into my closet today looking for the button I usually wear, and I saw the I-49 button that we had when we were on that tour back when I was in Congress. I thought of you. Thanks for your continued effort with the Good Roads Foundation as well. I see Lori Tudor out there who's really doing a very good job. Very proud of the decision of the commissioners, and I want to acknowledge her work and partnership with us. And we have our commissioners here. Would you all stand? I just want to make sure I see you all. What a great job. Give them a round of applause. Very proud of each of them, and long after I leave the office of governor, these commissioners, at least the ones that I appointed, will still be in there doing a good job, and that's a good legacy that they will have. Today it is actually nice to talk to a real live audience, and that you're handling it in the right way with appropriate distancing. I'm getting a little tired of Zoom calls. I was on one today. I was actually speaking to the Indian American Chamber of Commerce, and so I had people from New Delhi on there as well as people from Arkansas, and it was pretty cool to give that conversation. But they're all working remotely, and there was some child all through my talk that was just squawking. And so nobody's going to be squawking during this talk, I hope. But it is good to be with you today, and I'm here to talk about issue 1. And if you come into my office, you will see behind in my cabinet there all the acts that were passed in the 2019 session of the legislature. And then you'll see the placard that says GOAT session. And that is really a source of pride for me, because I know people razz me because you shouldn't be doing this, bragging about what happened, but it was the greatest of all time. We had so many initiatives that were all geared around growth, and it was about raising teacher pay, improving education. It was about tax cuts that keeps us competitive. It's about transforming state government. That is a good success story. But the fourth T was transportation. And while we passed a part of that initiative in the 2019 session, and we referred a key part of that, which is the extension of the half-cent sales tax to the voters, the mission of that session is not complete unless we can pass issue 1. And so we still have work to do, and if it doesn't pass, I'm taking the sign down. Because it really is a critical part of what we accomplished in that session. And so when it looks at issue 1, as Joe said, it really ensures long-term security of our highway funding. And that is what we're trying to achieve. We've done a short-term funding, we've had bond issues that expire, but this gives us a long-term solution for our highway funding. Good roads are vital for our supply chain, as Joe mentioned, carrying essential products from medical supplies to groceries, and for our children to go to school, for our farmers in the farm-to-market roads. Every aspect of life is dependent upon the good roads that is supported by issue 1. $290 million annually, $205 million for RDOT, $85 million to cities and counties. And if you look at the future, and growth has been my message as governor since day 1. Growth, growth, growth. And as you look at the challenge of the pandemic, it really makes growth even more essential, because while we were down at a 3.5% unemployment rate, we are now at 7.4% unemployment rate, and we have to have continued growth to bring those jobs back more quickly. And it takes issue 1 to accomplish that. It will mean $8.2 billion in economic activity over the next 10 years. And if it fails, it means that we lose jobs. And if you want to challenge me on that, you think through of the loss of revenue in our highway construction, that companies will lay off people because there is not that long-term solution and planning and funding stream to build our roads in Arkansas. And so we don't want to lose those jobs. If it fails, counties and cities will lose nearly 30% of their current road budget. To me, that is one of the most key messages that we have to the voters of Arkansas, is that this is not about sustaining. Well, it is about sustaining, but it is about not having our counties and cities lose that revenue that is regularly coming into them. And if it fails, you're going to have a loss of revenue, a loss of jobs at the county and city level as well. But you all know all of that, and so let me turn the page and say there's 2 questions that have been raised that I want to talk to specifically. And one of the questions is, why does it have to go into the Constitution? And that's raised, and it actually makes some sense at a surface level, because if I had my preference, I wouldn't put this in the Constitution. But my first priority was that this initiative needs to be voted on by the people of Arkansas. And if we're going to extend the half-cent sales tax, they passed it to begin with, they need to vote on it again if we're going to extend it. And so we had to have this referred to a vote of the people, and the only way for the legislature to refer it to the people was by doing it in a constitutional amendment format. That is the only mechanism that it could get to a vote of the people. Secondly, we're amending Amendment 91 that was passed in 2012 that's already in the Constitution. And so it's absolutely essential that we do it in this fashion to give the people the vote that they need to decide whether they want to extend that half-cent sales tax. The other objection that is raised is, well, it has no sunset clause, and so it is a permanent tax. Well, what we know in Arkansas is that even if it is in the Constitution, it can be changed. And just like we are putting it to the voters to extend the half-cent sales tax, at any point in the future, the voters can reverse course if they chose to do so. I don't believe they will choose to do so, but they could, and take it back out of the Constitution. Illustrations of that are casinos and lotteries. There was a time in Arkansas we had none of that because the Constitution prohibited it. Well, the Constitution was amended by a vote of the people that allowed what we have today, both in terms of casinos and lottery. And so we're very familiar in Arkansas as to the voice of the people in the Constitution that can start an initiative, they can end an initiative, and it can all be done by a vote of the people. And that's what we're asking them to do, is to extend that half-cent sales tax, no new tax, but extend it, and that will give us the long-term funding that we need and allow us to plan for the future. And that's the second reason that it is long-term, that there's not a sunset there, is that I can envision that we can plan for the interstate developments that we need. We can plan for the road construction and our farm-to-market roads. We can do it over a longer-term basis because we know that funding is there. And that's what the people want. That's why it has such great support. And so the third thing I want to talk about is what has changed since 2019. Now you think about the environment that we had when the legislature referred issue 1 to the people. What has changed since that time? Well, first of all, there were a whole slew of other ballot initiatives that arose that was going to be on the ballot. And those were going to be everything from redistricting to marijuana to ranked voting to perhaps additional casinos. Well, the deck has been cleared. And now the focus is back on the initiatives that were referred by the legislature. And I believe that that is a plus for us, that we can focus the voters' attention on the 3 initiatives that will be there, that's been referred to them for a vote. Obviously, the attention I want them to focus on is issue 1. The second issue that has changed is COVID-19. And whenever COVID hit us, first of all, I never thought it would last this long, despite the fact that Dr. Smith on March 11 called me to the side and said, "AC, you know, this pandemic could go on for 5 months." And I didn't believe him, but it has happened. And it continues until today. And so while we didn't expect it, COVID-19 is with us. How does that impact the vote on issue 1? Well, if people think about jobs and employment and the economy and growth, it actually makes the case for us that that's another reason to pull us out of this, is to vote for issue 1 and to create those additional jobs. The third thing that's changed is that we have organized opposition, and we should not take issue 1 for granted. We have organized opposition to this, and we're grateful for the money that's been raised for this campaign, the support that we have for it. But as you go into the last 40 days of this campaign, do not take it for granted. You cannot say, well, we're good shape right now, because it is a changing environment day by day at the national scene, at the state scene as well. We have to stay engaged. And that brings me to 2 announcements that I wanted to make today about the campaign. First of all, the committee commissioned a poll, and they've allowed me to present that poll to you today. And this is 800 likely voters that were interviewed in Arkansas, balanced across the state. Margin of error for this survey is plus or minus 3.5%. And first, before I get to the ballot question, I was really struck by this as to how people were going to vote. 53% of the respondents intend to vote on Election Day. 44% intend to vote early. Of those, 30% intend to vote in person early, with 13% absentee voting. 1% is already voted. Now, that's instructive to me. It should be instructive to anybody who's running a campaign that with that high volume of absentee votes and early voting, you have to start that campaign yesterday, which we've done. But you have to remember, it's not about just an election day issue. It is all the way through from now until then. When it comes to the ballot question itself, for or against issue 1, we had 69% express their support for issue 1.
Wow, that's good.
Thank you. I'll go back to Zoom calls here pretty soon. And 18% against and 13% undecided. It's very significant when you look at party affiliation. 69% supported among Republicans, 72% among Democrats, 68% among independents. It was highly supported in all of the media markets, with somewhat of a surprise, but 81% of the Jonesboro market supported it, which is the highest of all the regions of the state. And what does that tell you? Everybody can figure out it's the agricultural community, it's the farm to market roads that they understand. Oh, maybe it's Alec Farmer. That's it. I forgot Alec. I'm sorry. It is the commissioner there, but the rest of them you're going to have to catch up just a little bit. But that's a good signal in my view as to those numbers. Now, when I tell you those numbers, I'm gratified with them, but I've run campaigns before, I've lost campaigns before, I've won campaigns before, and you can push till the finish line. And voters change their mind. There's going to be ads out there in opposition to it, so do not quit in terms of the messaging. And that leads me to one more announcement, and that is, this is my highest priority for a statewide initiative, and that is to pass issue 1. It is my highest priority. And so on October 19th, which is the first day of early voting, I will be doing a fly around, hopefully with others, a fly around to all the media markets in Arkansas, rallies, getting the last bit of information out, kicking off that early voting time. And so I want to devote that day, take off my normal activities, devote it to issue 1. I'll be going to Jonesboro, Fort Smith, Northwest Arkansas, El Dorado, Little Rock. We'll see what else we can work in that fly around. But we want to kick off our final push with that effort. That is critical as we go into the last parts of this campaign. So with that, let me thank you again for your support of issue 1. The fact that you've raised money for a good campaign, the fact that you're preaching the gospel out there, you're telling people, and it has to be a ground game as well. Get out to vote, energize people all across so we can finish strong on this and win, and assure our children and grandchildren's future in terms of economic growth in the state of Arkansas, supported by a strong infrastructure. Thank you very much.